What's up guys, Asian here again with another PTS patch notes video. So yes, it is Monday, which means we have a new patch on the PTS, and it did seem like they made quite a few balance changes here with this particular patch cycle. So we're just going to go through them and kind of talk about what the implications are, mainly from a PvE standpoint, but we might touch upon PvP a little bit. There is something in here that kind of confused me a little bit for PvP, so I talked with a couple of people in the Toxic and Raiding Environment Discord, and they kind of cleared up what that confusion was. So I'll be able to touch upon that note once we get to it, but overall it's going to be mostly geared towards PvE. So we're in 4.2.3. We do have a release date for Murkmire. So Murkmire is being released on the 22nd, so that is 2 weeks from today. So we are expecting one more PTS cycle patch, so 4.2.4, and then on the 22nd we will have Murkmire go live. So we basically have one more set of PTS notes, and then we have the live version coming in. For the last patch, Gina did put in at the very end of the patch notes the major differences between 4.1.4 and when 4.1 went live. So we're expecting that same thing here. So hopefully that video between 4.2.4 and 4.2.0 on live, hopefully she'll have something like that, so we can just talk about those specific changes rather than the changes as a whole. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here with 4.2.3. So again, all this kind of beginning stuff here, these first four categories don't really affect PvE too much here. The only thing that's really worth noting are the changes to Black Rose Prison. So they did change a couple of things for the Black Rose Prison, the arenas. So they basically buffed a few of the bosses here. So Arena 1 got buffed. They basically increased the health and gave him more meteors. Arena 2, they did a couple of changes here overall, but the final boss did get a buff, so he does have more health, and he will enrage any allies that are still alive. So he summons like different adds up at certain health intervals. So if those are still up, they'll be enraged if the next ally comes up. Arena 3, same thing. So now she can enrage adds to the last boss here, and then there are a couple of changes here. So when a bone colossus is active, the main boss is shielded from any damage, and all this stuff here. And then for Arena 5, again, a little bit more buffs here. And everything else here is just kind of, again, not really PvE oriented. And so here's where all the meat of the stuff comes into play here. So under combat and gameplay. So they did fix a couple of issues here that does change how Stam and Magic DPS are going to be geared up a little bit. But the first thing here is that they did fix the whole Battle Spirit thing in 4.2.2 where it was being applied before. So this is kind of the one that I had a little bit of confusion on, and I had to talk with a couple of people who in Toxic Raiding Environment who are more fluent in PvP. So Conjure's Ward and Annulment will now calculate their damage shield value taking Battle Spirit into account before the shield is capped. And they gave me an example here. So in Cyrodiil, player with 20k health will have a shield cap of 8k instead of 4k. So apparently what was happening in 4.2.2 was the cap was actually lowered. So instead of the 40% cap, it was actually a 20% cap. So they kind of fixed that here. So basically what this means is you should have that 40% shield cap in PvP. So in 4.2.2, we couldn't really take a look at the size of the damage shields in Cyrodiil or Battlegrounds because of the way that Battle Spirit was kind of affecting it. So now it'll be actually working as intended. So I will try to get onto the PTS this week and kind of show you guys sort shields, both on PvE and then what it looks like in PvP as well. There are a couple of questions too as to the Bastion CP. There's no word on Bastion in these series of patch notes, but with the new health cap on shields, there's a lot of questions as to whether Bastion, the CP passive, is going to be reworked, because right now it's basically pointless to invest in for PvE and PvP. So I just changed a couple of tooltips here. They fixed a few issues up here. So with Hardened Ward now, so there was kind of a discussion as to why you used Hardened Ward anymore, because you had the 40% max health cap. So they now increased it, so Hardened Ward will increase the shield cap to 50% of your max health, and also give the additional shield bonus to your pets as well. This is one of the morphs of Conjured Ward. The other morph is Empowered Ward, so that still remains at 40% of your max health, and also gives minor intellect to you and your allies. So it's basically a trade-off between survivability versus sustain. And then eventually when I do that the shield video in Cyrodiil compared to shields in PvE, hopefully we'll be able to kind of see which one is going to be worth picking over. Right now in Toxic Raiding environment, I've seen conversations saying that Empowered Ward is probably still going to be the morph of choice, just because the additional sustain, but I kind of want to test it out and get a couple more opinions from you guys specifically, who are more versed in PvP compared to me. No changes for Templars. For light armor, for dampened magic, receive the same treatment as Hardened Ward, so this basically increases the shield cap to 50% of your max health. No word as to whether the original effect remains, where for each piece of light armor you gain a little bit more shields. I'm assuming that it is still in. I haven't gone into PTS yet to check, but that's what I'm assuming is happening here. They did reduce the cost of evasion and its morphs by 15%, and they also reduced the cost of immovable and its morph by 15%. They also reduced the duration of the CC immunity to 4 seconds, down from 5 for the immovable and its morphs. Now, they did fix a couple of things here with the Cloud Rest sets. So the first fix was with Arms of Relequen. So right now on live, the proc from Arms of Relequen will proc abilities and item sets that proc off of melee damage. So they actually fixed this bug. This was a bug. So now that the item set Relequen will no longer proc anything that takes melee damage as a proc condition. So things like Selene's and Ravager just lost a fair bit of power here, particularly Ravager, so there's really no point in running Ravager anymore, mainly because you were kind of depending on that Relequen proc to help keep Ravager uptime pretty high. So aside from maybe Templars with jabs, you're not going to see Ravager be used anymore. So I needed to take a look a little bit and delve into the math and kind of do some tests on the PTS. But the two main sets that we've been looking at are going to be Veiled Heritance or Briarheart as cheaper alternatives to Advancing Yokeda. Advancing Yokeda is still going to be probably the strongest set right now for a lot of Stam DPS, but I do need to take a look at the alternatives that you can buy off of guild traders or craft yourselves, just so people who are in the process of farming Advancing Yokeda have another set that they can run. I'm thinking Briarheart, but there was talk about Veiled Heritance being a pretty good alternative as well, so we'll just have to see on that. They're still trying to work out all the bugs with Balorg. Now for Mantle of Siroria, one of the big issues with running Siroria front bar on live right now is that when you bar swap to your back bar, you lose the spell damage bonus. This was a long-going bug, and so they managed to fix it in this particular patch. So they fixed an issue where weapon swapping out of this item set's 5-piece bonus was causing you to lose a spell damage bonus. So now you're maintaining that spell damage bonus when you swap to your back bar and you have Siroria front bar. So this will make a couple of builds a little bit more viable now. The prime examples are going to be Templars and Nightblades. Now you'll be able to wear Master Architect on your body piece and have Siroria front bar and not worry about losing the Siroria spell damage bonus. You will be doubling up on Minor Slayer that way, but you won't have to do any sort of weird bar swapping changes, changing your ultimates out or anything like that, so you can have Master Architect on your front bar. So that's pretty nice to have there. Plus the Mag DK's Elf Bane on the body and Siroria on the front bar just became a lot stronger. Whether or not that's going to be stronger than Siroria body Burning Spellweave front bars remains to be seen. I will have to test that out and see whether or not that works or not. So they did change a couple of things here with the Black Rose set. So Razor Shot, which I believe is the bow. Yeah, this is the Black Rose bow. Now this ignores mitigation, all damage mitigation. So this bleed now will now completely ignore any sort of physical resistances. Actually, no, it's not a bleed, it's poison damage. So it'll ignore any physical resistances. It did change Soldier of Anguish, so this was the set that a lot of people have been keeping an eye on because it reduces the amount of basically negates healing that's done on you. So they did change that. So the old one was when you deal damage with a melee attack, you have a 25% chance to traumatize your enemy, negating their next 5,500 points of healing for 4 seconds, and this has no cooldown. Basically, it can occur every 4 seconds. And the new effect is your melee light attacks have a 25% chance to place a ring on the ground that explodes after 1.25 seconds, applying 4,800 health absorption to all enemies hit for 4 seconds, negating the next 4,800 points of healing done. This effect can occur once every 6 seconds. So basically what happened is, instead of any melee damage, it is only your light attacks, and it's only melee light attacks, so magicka DPS won't be able to do anything with this. They never was really able to run this anyways for magicka. Unless you were doing something like a dual wield magicka build or something like that. They added a little bit of a delay. They reduced the health negation, and they also increased the cooldown. So hopefully this will ease some people's concerns. Again, I don't PvP a lot. Just browsing through the forums, there were a couple of complaints, but the official forums are not necessarily the most unbiased place to get opinions, and there hasn't been any word of this in toxic raiding environment. So I'd like to just know what you guys' thoughts are on this change. I know healing negation is a pretty strong debuff, and it seems like they might be introducing more sources of this later on down the line. So I kind of want to get your guys' thoughts on what you guys think of this. Stinging slashes, so I believe this is the Master's daggers, I want to say. So they reduced the bonus granted to each attack of twin slashes to 1350 extra damage, down from 1500. This is probably more for PvP, just to kind of reduce the power of the bleed there. I don't know how prevalent Master Daggers are, dual wield Master Daggers are in PvP, so hopefully one of you guys can let me know down in the comments whether this is this was a problem or not, and whether or not this nerf was needed. And then they fixed an issue where Winterborn was bypassing snare immunity. And that's pretty much it. Oh, one thing here, they reduced the duration of major expedition potions. So the base duration it was, or I should say, with max medicinal use or whatever the passive is, the duration of major expedition was 40.6 seconds. Now it is down to 12.5 seconds. So pretty hefty nerf there. I think this is just shy of 75% nerf to the duration. So this is probably not great for PvP. There was a lot of discussion in toxic raiding environment about how this basically killed magicka mobility. Again, I don't PvP enough to kind of know how this all stands. My understanding is from the discussion that I saw in toxic raiding environment was the big issue was with swift and forward momentum, and not so much with major expedition potions. So the big complaint from toxic raiding environment, the PvPers there, was that this is a huge nerf to magicka mobility. So there's really no reason or I shouldn't say there's no reason, but this kind of gives stamina builds a much greater leg up compared to the magicka builds. Hopefully you guys can let me know down in the comments whether that assessment is correct or not. Again, I don't PvP enough. I'm just going off of what they're discussing in the Discord. So that is pretty much it for this patch notes. So the big things here are the fact that they managed to fix the bug with Battle Spirit, so I will be going in and kind of taking a look at shield sizes in PvE versus shield sizes in PvP. How much shield stacking is going to still be an issue in PvP. So I'll just make a Sork and just do Hardened Ward and Damp Magic and just see how high I can get my shields. And then the big thing that's going to affect magicka DPS is going to be the changes to Siroria, and then Stam DPS changes to Relequen. But overall, there was some discussion about this in toxic raiding environment as well, but there's not that much anticipation, or I should say, there's not much concern about these changes. It's not going to drastically affect DPS too much. The only thing that's going to be changing with Relequen is that instead of Selene, you're going to see Veli back into play, and the difference between those two sets was already pretty small to begin with. You won't see Ravager used anymore, but that was only really used on a handful of classes, a handful of builds. Yokeda isn't really affected by this, and Briarheart is still a pretty strong set regardless. So based on things that I've seen in toxic raiding environment and kind of my own opinions on the PvE changes, this doesn't seem like this will affect DPS too much. You might see a small loss in stamina DPS, but in the raid environment, they're still going to be outparsing magicka DPS overall. But the change to Siroria does open up a little bit more build diversity for magicka Templars, magicka Nightblades, as well as magicka DKs. So that is it for this analysis. Not that many changes here, so this video is a little bit shorter compared to the first couple of patch notes where there were a lot of changes coming in. And again, the official release for Murkmire is on October 22nd, so we still have one more set of PTS notes, and then we have the live release, so changes can happen in the next 2 weeks there. So again, we'll be keeping an eye on this. This seems to be kind of more focused in on how are these changes going to affect PvP. So I'm anticipating the next week's patch notes is again going to be pretty small, pretty short video, very similar to this, but we'll see what they manage to have in store for us then. That's pretty much it. So again, I will try to get onto the PTS this week, kind of make a template sork and kind of see how shield stacking works in PvP now that they've made these changes and it's all working as it should be. So you guys can tell me whether or not this is a good nerf, a good change, or a bad nerf or bad change, or if it's a buff or whatever have you. So that's it for this video. Hope you guys found us informative. Again, all you PvPers, please let me know down in the comment section below what your thoughts are on these changes, primarily to Soldier of Anguish, as well as the Battle Spirit thing. So my understanding is now it is working correctly, so just let me know whether my understanding is correct now that the shield cap is actually going to be 40 or 50% rather than the 20% that it was last PTS patch. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next dungeon.